In, but it's good to see all of you. We haven't had a PR specific meetup in a while. Hi, Ashby. Good to see you.
Hi.
So as we sort of, I know we have still a little hunkering down to do yet, but as we look toward getting back to normal, I thought it would be a good time to kind of revisit um, media training. I mean, I went to the store the other day and it was really crowded. And I've done that like thousands of times in my life, but I was a little bit overwhelmed. Um, and I think as we all kind of emerge back into, you know, publicity and interviews, it's always a good time after a hiatus to kind of revisit the fundamentals, but also talk about um, some of the specific things we can do related to kind of a COVID recovery with our PR efforts. And then we also want to leave a little bit of time for questions because I want to know what is on y'all's minds. Um, we we haven't had a lot of chances to connect lately, so definitely going to leave time for that, so we can get to know what your questions are. So I want to introduce our speaker, Kristen Mahler. She is Senior Vice President at JPR, which is, of course, the PR agency of record for Visit NC. Hopefully, she's no stranger to all of you at this point. She has more than 15 years of hospitality PR expertise. In late 2019, she launched JPR's office in Toronto, bringing JPR to a seventh city and a third country since its inception in 2004. She is focused on high level client management, crisis communications, and creative campaign development. Um, she is part of the leadership team at JPR, and she is co chair of the People Committee, which oversees all things related to personnel, HR, and training, among other things at the agency. She also oversees JPR's podcast, Priority Status, working with team members globally to identify, interview, and produce episodes related to current topics intersecting with travel. And Kristen is also the lead at JPR on media training, which makes her the perfect person to work with us this morning. Prior to joining JPR in 2013, Kristen was spokesperson for a variety of destination tourism offices and CVBs. She spent many years working with global hospitality brands and notable boutique hotels, shaping their media narratives and creating impactful campaigns. She is an expert storyteller and a trusted resource for our team. Um, and we're excited to have her with us today. So, welcome, Kristen.
Thank you, Margot. Wow, that was such a nice intro. So I really appreciate that. It's really a pleasure to be here today with everybody. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know everybody is so busy right now, and there's never a dull moment in the world of PR. So we're really grateful that you've taken some time to spend with us, and it's a pleasure to see all of you. And I think I've met some of you over the course of the 3 years or so that we've been working with VNC. I'm just going to switch, Margot, to you being the host, just so you can admit anybody else who's coming into the waiting room as we get started. And just to let you all know that we are recording this session. So we will send it to you afterwards, as well as the outline, so that you can really digest it and read through and let us know if you have any questions. But taking a look at everybody who registered, I feel like we have some really seasoned PR pros on this call. So please feel free to jump in and ask questions, or you can share anything that you have to add as well. But we will get started. I'm going to share my screen, and we will take it from there. The beginning of our presentation talks a little bit more about some basics, so we won't spend too much time there, but I'll give you an overview of JPR really quickly so you can understand our agency. Margot gave me a really great intro. Let me just see, full screen, and we'll go from there. So Good morning. So JPR, our agency is a global communications agency. We specialize in travel and hospitality, and we have offices around the world, New York, London, LA, San Diego, and as Margot mentioned, I launched the Toronto office late in 2019. We specialize in hospitality and tourism. We work with a lot of destinations, hotels, resorts, restaurants, spas. Um, we are really, passionate about media relations and its core, and that's really at the heart of what we do. We give our clients, creative campaigns. We work on brand partnerships. We do social media management and strategy for our clients as well. So we are a full service communications agency. We like to think of ourselves as experts in storytelling for destinations, hotels, and the business of travel and hospitality. We really understand how journalists work and are constantly cultivating our deep media connections on behalf of our clients. Today is an opportunity for us to share our best practices and tips with you and how you can best communicate with journalists to share your brand story. We've had the pleasure of working with VNC for, since 2018. And I think that, each of the destinations as we've come to know them is so unique and interesting. And the people that we've been able to meet that work in the different areas of the state are so passionate about what they do. And it really does come to life for journalists. And we're just thrilled to have the opportunity to share more with each of you so that you can work on building up each of your destination, hotel, restaurants, wherever you're representing right now. So this is a little bit of an intro section, and we can talk through this pretty quickly because I'm sure that this is pretty old to you, old news in some ways, but understanding the media and who are they. We have three different sort of buckets of media that we look at today, and they're freelancers, reporters, which are, staff writers and editors, and then bloggers and influencers. Essentially the difference here for each one of these is that freelancers work on their own and they're always out trying to hustle to get the next story and to be the first one to pitch their editor. They're definitely somebody that returns more and more on, storylines because they're trying to constantly sell the same or similar story to multiple outlets. So they're great relationships to have. And I know that many of you have really strong freelancer relationships. The reporters, staff writers, and editors, they wear many different hats. They're assigning stories, they're writing stories on their own. But they are, people who are really shaping what the storylines in the magazines and newspapers are going to be. And they're the ones that are working as, a creative team to develop what their editorial calendar is. And then we have bloggers and influencers, which, obviously are more and more important every week. I feel like there's another thing that we can do with them and work with them because they are writers, photographers, editors all in one and focused on building their own brand. And their first person storytelling over digital medium is really essential to how we're exposing our brands and how we're marketing our products overall. So more and more, I think brands are being really creative on how they can work with bloggers and influencers. And as we have more tools online, more platforms that they are using, telling our story together with them just becomes more exciting. And then just a quick overview, long lead and short lead. This is really basic stuff, but long lead magazines they publish monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly, sometimes even annually. Editors of these titles are really planning about as far as 6 months or even up to 3 months ahead of the publishing date. So for long lead pubs, we really look at them to make sure that we're telling our seasonal stories really clearly so that we can have those hitting at the right moment. And then for short lead, as you probably all have noticed over the course of the last year, short lead has become even shorter, if that's possible. Anything besides a magazine, really, daily newspapers and websites, TV news programs and weekly magazines, they are collecting stories and writing and publishing, sometimes within a couple of days of the pitch. So it's really exciting to have the momentum really pick up for short lead lately. And it just has to keep us on our toes really to think about how we can send stories to these outlets that are really short and digestible and easy for the media to turn around. So does anybody have any questions about that first section that they wanted to share? No? Okay. So how to tell your story. I think that this is where we can spend a little bit more time here and understanding how we can be effective storytellers and how we can think about how we're utilizing our media relationships and looking for new ones a little bit differently. Thinking about what news is. So when we're looking at how to position our destination, our hotel, our restaurant, wherever we are, in a way that's interesting for media, thinking about new is always the first stop, right? Anything new, openings, renovations, new services, new activities, those are always eye-catching for the media. What if you have creative services or events or packages that are coming up? Any deals or specials? Obviously, that's always key. People love a good sale. Awards, if you've won anything that's within the industry or within any category that you feel like is important to your customer. Community involvement is definitely becoming more and more important. And it is also an area where it's, you want to tread lightly. You don't want to sort of promote yourself, but you want to share what you're doing to be a part of your local community or your regional community, whatever that looks like. If you have any personnel announcements, that's always a fun one for trades. They love shouting out people and their achievements, so that's great too. And any partnerships that you're working on locally with brands or nationally with other companies. Partnerships are a great way to just expose yourself to a little bit of a wider audience. Yes?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was not on mute.
Sorry. It's okay. But I don't mind anybody shouting out if they have a question. So, feel free. And any partnerships, of course, are great news to share with journalists. So ways that we can share with media, tailored pitches, trend stories, press releases, individual media visits are really a great way. We have group FAMs and media events, interviews, SMTs, media missions, virtual media tours, Instagram takeovers, and exclusive access. So today we can talk through a lot of these things. If any questions that you have specifically, but we do have a few slides that talk really more in depth about how to do a virtual media mission or a individual media visits and how to make the most of them. I'm just going to open the chat. Sorry, I think everybody can see this. Oh, sorry. That's okay. All right. So we will go on from here. So how to engage with media and being prepared for working with journalists. I think that the number one thing that we find at JPR is, when we're looking at how are we telling the story for our clients and how are we getting in front of the right media at the right time is really to owning our story and knowing our audience. So you all as experts in your destination or brand, your brand better than anyone. So make sure your pitch is tailored and exactly what you want the media and ultimately the reader or consumer to know. It's really important to be clear about why this is news now. So, it's drilling it back to, the 5 W's in journalism class and what it means for the readers of the publication at that moment in time. Writers are always, they're providing a service and they want to be a place of valuable information for their audience. So it's really up to us as being the PR pros to help the writers easily build a story that makes sense for their audience. Obviously, it's really important to have a library of assets. Having a solid, press kit is really key. Anything that you can pull from to create your pitches that are, consistent and clear messaging across the board. High-res photography, we all know, is super important, and it's easier than ever now to get that because of the quality of camera phones these days. So, sometimes we just have to run out and grab a shot on our own if it doesn't work. Making sure that, your imagery is clearly labeled, it's not over stylized, it's on an easily hosted source. So, the media that we work with love working on Google Drive or Dropbox or Box, like just sending a link to an image is so much easier these days than ever. So making sure that you're really comfortable with those tools to send. And video is important, obviously, but it's not as important as I feel like it once was because of the quality of images we can get and also just the ease of which video can be recorded. So we don't really recommend these days that formal B-roll is really essential for clients, but it's nice to have if you have the capabilities. And inviting media for hosted experiences and fam trips. Obviously, the last year has not really been a lot. There hasn't been a lot of in-person travel and hosted experiences, but it's picking up, as you all know, with the vaccines rolling out more heavily and people feeling more comfortable to travel. So really seeing is believing. Inviting journalists to visit for a hosted stay or a dinner or just an experience is really the best way to tell your story. If you can get them in, if you can get them to your destination, you can sell them. And we all know that's true. Once they get there and they see how amazing it is, they understand the community, they understand the destination that much more, and their story comes to life much better. So it's really just important to be clear about what the expectation is when you're inviting journalists or influencers or bloggers to visit. How many, how much is included, what stays, et cetera. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So talking with media, do and don't. These are sort of tips and best practices that we've been using and we've always shared with our clients to, make them feel more comfortable when having a media interview. Assume that everything is on the record. Anything that you say can be quoted and used as direct from the source. And so only say things and do things that you would be proud of being shared widely. I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward, but oftentimes you can get caught up in the moment. So you want to make sure that that everything is on the record. Know that it's okay to say that you have to check on something or get back to a writer with the facts. They really don't mind that. It's fine to say, I'm not sure, I'll get back to you. Be knowledgeable and confident in what you're presenting. I think that that's just one of the key things. You sort of, fake it till you make it, right? You have to make sure that you're sort of presenting yourself in a way that the writer feels confident in what you're saying. Going into an interview situation with 2 or 3 key points that you would like to make, staying mindful of deadlines and timelines. So making sure that when you have the opportunity to speak with a journalist, that you're not overloading them with the information. Thinking back again to what we talked about before, where who's their audience and who is your audience right now, and how can you make sure that what you're saying is going to stick with them. Enjoy yourself, have a good time. Reporters really, they react differently to different types of, people. If they're enthusiastic about something, they're going to feel better about the story versus if you feel, if you're holding back more, you're feeling a little hostile, they might feel a little bit differently as well. Giving specific examples to illustrate your points is really key. And I'm sure that each of you being destination experts probably have a whole boatload of examples you could share about your specific cities and regions. Remember that less is more. You don't really need to share everything at the onset. That's why we have backgrounders and press kits that we can use for follow-up information. And being aware of your body language, if it's in person or even if it's on a screen, making sure that you're smiling, that you feel confident, and that, that the media is going to pick up on some stuff like that too. Some things to avoid doing, and don't say no comment. This is always one that, some people think that this is sort of a fallback, but it's better to, not say no comment, because then that gives the impression that you're hiding something. So if you have a reason for not answering, you can just say, I can't answer that question. I mean, you don't want to say I can't answer that question. You don't want to say that. You want to say something that sort of leaves it open for you to come back to them. So just saying, I have to check on that and I'll get back to you is often the best cover that you can have for something that is not something that you want to comment on. Do not use technical jargon or acronyms that only So, we think about a DOSM or, a DMO. Sometimes the media aren't really familiar with those. So we want to make sure that we're being really clear because sometimes that could, get lost in translation. And you don't want to give one-word responses to a yes or no question. You want to be able to show that you have a little bit more passion behind you. So don't be afraid to give more clarity around something if it's a yes or no question. And again, don't wing it. If you don't know the answer, just say so and offer to find out. And that's perfectly okay. And I feel like media more than ever are so understanding and fine with that response. Does anybody have any questions on this slide that they'd like to ask, or should we move on? Okay. I just made this little slide here with some sample questions, thinking about, get you thinking about if you were to have an interview with a journalist, what they might ask you. So how long have you been working here? What makes your brand unique or different? What is your favorite thing you know you like about your brand? What kinds of guests do you have and what do they like to do? Where are your guests coming from? Where are you from and what is your background? How has your business changed and evolved in the last year? And what is something not commonly known about your brand? These are often questions to think about yourself before you go into an interview too, so that you can be prepared with responses, but also to help your storytelling, because these are all questions that can really, you know, show the true colors about your product, and get people excited and understanding it a little bit more and understanding yourself. At the heart of storytelling is people. So it's really important to make sure that you as an individual come across, even though, you know, as PR people, we're all so comfortable being in the background oftentimes, but having, you know, having a little bit of your personality and your background and your expertise show is always a good thing. So here, let's talk a little bit about virtual media interviews. I'm sure that a lot of you have had the opportunity to do a virtual media interview over the past 12 months or so. So some of these best practices that we've identified for maximizing Zoom meetings with journalists, being prepared before the call, do a tech check. Look at your software. Are you using Zoom? Are you using Teams? Are you using Google Hangouts? And make sure that you have the link, it's working, it's in the calendar, all that stuff. Look at your AV. Are your headphones working? Are you clear? Sometimes I have a colleague jump on a line with me before I have a meeting so that they can sort of tech check with me too, and feel free to do that as well. Having a professional background with minimal distractions and proper lighting really goes a long way. Planning to log on a few minutes early for your meeting. I think that everybody here is super punctual today, so I'm not sure you need that reminder. And reviewing the journalist's recent work. I think that this is a really good one and one to remember, that before you jump on an interview, you know, Googling them and seeing what they've written recently. Maybe they had a story published today. Giving them kudos on that, saying, hey, I just read that, or hey, I just saw the headline, I can't wait to read it later. That really does go a long way and sort of lightens the mood, and makes it feel a little bit more conversational, which brings us to our next tip, which is being conversational. Thinking about these virtual meetings as if they were in real life. It's really hard to do, because obviously we're all in our houses or in our offices, and you know, not having that in-person contact is hard, but it's great to have a list of talking points and story ideas you want to share, but try to keep a conversational vibe. Follow the writer's lead. Ask questions of them too, so they can tailor. You can tailor your responses and storytelling to suit their needs. So it's really great to also get them talking, asking them, you know, what are they working on? How, you know, how much do they know about your destination? How, you know, when was the last time they traveled to North Carolina? All these things are just good sort of benchmarks to understand who your audience is if you don't really have that in-depth knowledge yet. And following up, definitely carving out time on your calendar right after a media meeting is a great practice to have, whether it's just to source more information for the media or to send your follow-up assets immediately, or just to send a thank you. So media are always on deadline, and the more timely you can be, the better. So these are just some quick tips for you to think about as you're planning your virtual media interviews. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay. So here is a slide that talks about how to set up the perfect hosted media experience. We're going to get into a point soon where journalists are going to be traveling more. You're going to want to have people come and visit your destination and get to know what it means to, you know, stay and to write a story in the first person. So, you know, vetting them again, Google News is an excellent resource to see what they've covered lately, looking at their website, their LinkedIn, their Twitter, understanding their voice and their past articles, and even looking at their Instagram and understanding, you know, what their style is and where they've been hosted, especially if they're an influencer, obviously. A lot of media don't necessarily share like that on their Instagram, but it's good to take a check anyway. Be really clear about what's included. Having in writing what's included for a stay, if there's breakfast daily, or if there's a set F&B amount that they can use over the course of however many days. are gratuities included? Being really clear with the expectations and confirming details with the front desk or, the restaurant or whoever's, your partner in your destination if you're not a standalone. And giving them really clear suggestions locally of what they can do and what they should expect. Building an itinerary for their visit, and being, understanding how much do they want scheduled, how much do they not want scheduled. Understanding their preferences is really important because it will help them feel really good about their stay, and if they feel really good about it, they're going to write a better story. Giving media photos to the front desk of the hotel, up to the host stand at the restaurant so that people know who to expect. That's really important as well and gives the team a chance to really feel set up for success. Giving the opportunity to say hello, meeting them for a coffee or a cocktail on arrival, offer to arrange a tour, just offering yourself to be a resource for them while they're visiting is really important. Sending an amenity that's really photo ready that they could share on Instagram and give them hashtags, making sure that there's upgrades available for them on availability too. So encouraging connection too, following them on social, engaging with them over their experience, reposting it, sending a thank you note. So there are all ways to make sure that the media understand you and where you're coming from, and they see you and they know that they're valued. They know that their stay is important, and that it matters, and that you're not just setting them up just to show up and whatever. You want to make sure that they feel like you're there for them.
Kristen, I've got a quick question, if I
Yeah.
may.
Of course.
So how do you feel about, well, two questions, swag bags for media, and do you set a limit on those? And also, do media prefer a gift card for their visit rather than several individual comps, or do you comp everything and hope the restaurants remember? Because I can follow up 2 and 3 times and then the staff changes and they're like, and
Yeah.
who are you?
Yeah. That I'm sure that is a really challenging piece of your job, being, overseeing a destination and getting, different partners involved in all the right time. I love the idea of the gift card. We have done that in the past with media for destinations and for individual property experiences. It gives them the freedom to decide how they want to spend their time. I think that works really well, doing a prepaid gift card. We've also done prepaid Uber codes where we say, hey, we're going to give you an Uber balance of $100 to use during your visit, and you can use it however you want. And that does give them the freedom and flexibility. They do love that. For swag bags, it's funny because media in the past have definitely said, we love getting gifts, et cetera. But like they always say, when you tell us we're going to get something ahead of time, it helps. Like we like to be surprised, but we want to pack enough room to bring the stuff home, or we want to be prepared on what to bring home. So, for example, most of your guests are probably driving. So at least you have the opportunity there to be a little bit more creative, but giving a heads up to say, hey, we have some really great, we're going to give you some really great F&B stuff to bring home, or we're going to give you a great bottle of wine, or we have an awesome tote bag for you, or just like a heads up, I think gives them the opportunity to say, oh, okay, maybe I don't need to bring that, or maybe I need to make some more room in my car, or, hey, you know what, I'm not going to need that. Would you be able to ship it to me afterwards? Being flexible with that, I think is just really, it just shows like that you're a good partner, and just communicating with them.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Does anybody else want to have questions about hosting media? Okay. We can go on to the next slide, and we're about halfway through, so it looks like we will have some good time to chat. So working with media in a tailored approach, we can talk through this pretty quickly, but being really key, clued in as to what you want to say and how you want to say it is really important to getting the results that you want. So developing a KPI list of outlets based on your target demo, being a master of your story and knowing exactly what you want to say and how you want to say it, tailoring your pitch based on the interests of the writer and coverage and their coverage topics combined with your seasonality. I think the best results that we see always are people who are reading the writer's stories consistently, knowing their voice, knowing how they write, and giving them a story that suits their voice. It's better to sort of get like 5 really great stories than 50 so-so stories, because it's going to be a lot more meaningful for the reader. Keeping a steady stream of press placements running across short and long lead, that's where understanding the media timelines really comes into play, so that you're seeing stories hit every month, several each month over different types of media, and making your pitches personalized and the publication specific to garner attention. So you don't want to just sort of blanket out a pitch or send out just a mass press release just to send it out. You want to be able to target a specific journalist at a specific outlet for a reason. Any questions? Okay. And this is a slide that I'm sure all of you are aware of, but how our PR story comes to life, the many steps, we all know this. It's not just like, hey, I want a story and it comes out today. So I won't even go into depth on this slide, but it does, as you know, take several steps and a lot of really thoughtful and strategic work. So for influencers, really understanding how to work with them is key more than ever. Understanding that they are their own brand. And that's where I feel like a lot of, hotels and destinations and resorts kind of get tripped up a little bit, where they think, they want to have them come and experience, and they want to have them share, but, you really have to understand what their brand is and how you can fit into their storytelling. So working with them, and if you're being approached by them, or if you're approaching an influencer, understand how they develop content. Do they post a lot of statics? Are they doing more reels? Are they posting stories primarily? Do they do a lot of swipe ups? Do they do a lot of giveaways? Like, how do they engage with their audience? So going into it, how exactly your brand could fit into that, editorial calendar, if you will. And does it align with your brand and goals? I feel like, so many times these days, and this goes into the next bullet really for engagement versus followers, we can get caught up in that this person has so many followers, this would be a really great opportunity. Well, do they fit our brand goals? Are they aligning with our brand? Or are they like a bikini influencer who's only posting bikini shots? Like, that's not really going to drive the work that we want to be done. And understanding how much engagement they get. There are so many followers out there who have, over, X amount, whatever the threshold is, 100,000, 500,000, 1 million followers. But what's their engagement like? Do they have a lot of comments? Do they answer DMs frequently? Are they, getting a lot of likes on their pages? Do they have a page strategy? Are they reposting their content? Are they sharing it across their channels? Understanding how they're engaging with their community really gives you a better sense about how you can expect to see that engagement translate to your brand from working with them. And asking questions and putting everything in writing, that's really key. Giving them, a really clear expectation of what you need, how many posts you need, what do they need to look like? Do they need to be static? Are they stories? Are they reels? Are you looking for content that you just want, that they are not going to share on their page, that they're going to give to you exclusively through the relationship? That's another great way to get images of your resort or your destination or your restaurant or whatever you need. And in a way that can feel really lifestyle and really exciting. And then when you share it on your social channels, you can tag them, and it looks like a really cool partnership that you've been able to secure for your destination. So just being really clear and asking questions too. If something's not clear for you, it's probably not clear for them. So it's better to talk it out before they come and sort of feel that they're not given what they thought they should have had. Does anybody have any questions about influencers? No. Our next slide just talks about how social media can drive results. So getting traffic to your website, getting direct bookings, increasing your followers, increasing your engagement, getting reservations or event bookings, getting you new photography, as I mentioned, creating brand awareness, looking at how you're being competitive against other destinations or hotels in your comp set, getting in leads for groups or weddings or meetings. There's a whole slew of ways that working with social influencers can drive results. So it is a really important tool, and it's just as important to understand the audience of an influencer as it is to understand the audience of a typical news outlet.
So Kristen, a quick question back to influencers. I have trouble a lot of times connecting ROI with hosting an influencer and connecting them into the travel funnel of driving actual visitation, because there's a disconnect there. And I always question, it's part of the peso, the paid air, earned, shared, owned landscape, and it's a small part of that funnel, but to have to justify to my board of directors, we spent $5,000 on an influencer to post a couple photos or do a blog, and not be able to connect that to actual visitors coming into the area. I always question, are people liking their post and engaging because they're posting pretty pictures and having a great experience, or is it truly going to drive their network to our destination? So could you speak a little on that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, I think that there are a lot of influencers out there who absolutely are, it's their work. So they're looking for compensation for their time, their posts, their creativity. I would say that in the majority of the work that JPR does with influencers, we do not pay them. And do not give them a payment to go and stay at a hotel or a destination. We work with them to say, the payment is the trip. And as an agency, we do have a little bit of leverage with them because they want to work with us. And there are some clients that they probably are dream destinations that they want to go to. So they sort of say, okay, I can take this, and the deliverables aren't that hard for me to sort of use to justify that I'm getting a trip that would normally cost $5,000, $10,000, but I'm getting it for free. So I think that when you have to come into a situation where you need to pay an influencer to get it, you need to demand from them hard numbers as to how much what kind of traffic you're going to see from that. And any influencer, that's a professional that's going to, is running this as their business, should be able to provide you with a very clear outline of their demographics, how much traffic they drive to their website. They should give you case studies about other brands they've worked with and what the payment was and how they were able to drive revenue for them. These are all questions that you should certainly ask and feel 100% confident in asking at the beginning of a relationship so that you can understand what you're going to get in return. There are a lot out there that just post pretty pictures and they're like, oh, my followers want to see me, going places and doing things. Okay, great. So are your followers all 18 to 24? Are they, who are they? Where are they living? You should be able to get those clearly from an influencer at the very beginning. They should be able to tell you, my followers are predominantly female, and they are 34 to 50, and they live in suburban America. And they follow me because my most interacted posts are posts of me cooking, or a post of me outside, or a post of my style or whatever. They should be able to tell you those things. So if you're not getting that at the beginning, I would say don't work with an influencer. I would say that it's not going to be worth your time, your investment, your partner's investment, because they're probably not going to be able to drive traffic to your site. Another way that you can sort of show more ROI is to get them to do swipe ups as part of their work with you. So committing them to doing a couple of swipe ups to direct to your website, or direct to the website of a hotel that's hosting them in your destination, or a restaurant that's hosting them, or giving them a code to use for bookings. I realize that for destinations, it's not as easy to track because you're working with multiple partners, but giving them a code to use that could work at multiple hotels or multiple, restaurants in your city or region could work, and encouraging them to use it. I've seen also that other clients of ours have used incentives. So have sort of given influencers sort of like a travel agent mentality, where they're going to give them commissions on bookings that come through. That's another way to think about it too. If you can say that, okay, if you're going to drive X amount of bookings, we'll give you, if they're like, we need to be paid, and we're like, well, you can get paid on commission then. And that's the structure that you build versus paying them a flat out fee. So those are,
That's the best answer I've heard on that topic. So thank you. A lot of food for thought there.
yeah, okay, sure, for sure. There's a whole depth of different things you could talk about when it comes to influencers and working with them, but I'm happy you asked. Does anybody have any other questions they want to ask about working with social?
I think Susan has a question. You want to unmute yourself, Susan?
I don't see her unmuted.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. I had moved some things around on my screen and I didn't realize I'd done that. One thing that I'm seeing here in North Carolina with some of the statewide influencers and people who are more specific to our region, and especially if they're people who will visit smaller towns and smaller destinations, is that they've been so deeply affected by the lower web traffic for travel that they are asking for sponsorships right now just to be able to pay their rent. Not everybody, but some. And so what I'm doing right now is actually, I'm working with people that I've worked with in the past that I know have been responsive and have done a good job. I do pay some influencers, but I'm very, very careful about who it is, and I make sure that they have that component. I mean, so that's something I'm seeing in the post-COVID universe, that the payments can make a difference. And then one thing too is the swipe ups. That's a great idea, but I'm also looking at, you know, how they post and just making sure, you know, if it's an influencer and their body is in 3/4 of your, you know, hotel picture, you know, that's not helping you any. So those are not the people that I know my folks are going to work with. But I will just say, I'm seeing that some of our influencers have just been so affected, especially if their website traffic is part of that. Another tip is when they're in market, before they come as part of our written agreement, I ask them on the insights that they have on their Instagram and their phone for their Instagram stories, I ask them to do a screenshot of those numbers and send it to me later so that I can show my clients the number of people that actually saw their Instagram stories while they were in my market.
Yes. Yes, Susan, I'm so happy that you said that, because the reporting function afterwards is certainly something that you should ask of influencers, and making sure that they're providing that data for you. It's something that as an agency, we do for our clients when we're setting up hosted stays. So it's absolutely important for you to make sure you're asking them, and they should want to provide it, because then it sort of puts them in a position to say, this is what I've been able to do for you. And then, you know, moving forward, they want to be able to use that for looking at working with other destinations or to work with you again. So thanks for sharing those tips. They're all really great.
One other thing, I just thought of this. For some influencers and bloggers, especially this is a blogger thing, but I've given them it as part of what I usually give, the cash cards and comp and cash usually. But anyway, is I've said, I'm giving you this amount of for your cash card, and I'm setting aside 50, 30, however much you want to do, dollars, 100 to boost the content once you post it. And that has worked very well, because a lot of the time we'll do our own boost, but we won't necessarily target the people on that site that blogger has following them on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever. And so I've found that very effective. If I say part of this budget in this is for you to boost to your people, and if there are, you know, specific targets or demographics or whatever that I want to be sure they're covering, but you know, if you're working with them, you kind of want their followers. So
yeah. That's a great point. I mean, boosting is a hugely effective strategy. And if you're able to do it on your own destination channel, it's great. But, you know, encouraging them to do it too is also really smart. So I love that.
I was going to save this question for the end because it's a little bit more for Margot, but I feel like now is a good time to bring it up. going back to one of the first slides where you had the buckets of, freelancer, staff writers, influencers. With the landscape changing, I was wondering if I could get just a short update from Margot about how we can work with Visit NC in each of those buckets.
Yeah, that's great. I think that from our perspective, what we're looking at when we're working for VNC and getting stories told about the destination or about a campaign that we're working with overall for the state, and I'm not sure if this is answering your question, so stop me if this is not it. We sort of look at what are the titles. We have our KPI list of titles that we want to be in. And the way that we sort of go about that is, do we know an editor on staff that is a really good connection that's going to assign that out, or that's going to write the story? Do we go to them first? Or do we go look at a freelancer that we have a really great relationship that writes for that publication a lot? So we sort of look at the publication and then look at the relationships from there. So if we were to work with you, if you were looking to, if we had a story that was lying, can you remind me your destination again?
Johnston County.
Okay, so in Johnson County, if we were going to have someone come and visit, and we're saying, okay, Outside Magazine, this is like someone that we want to have come and we want them to write a story, and how does this sort of fit in with what your goals are? We would work together on that. It wouldn't just be a singular thing, but again, we're also looking at the state overall, so we would want to make sure that there was more than one destination featured in the stories to make it a statewide success. Is that helpful, or did I answer your question?
I can jump in a little bit here, Ashby, and tell you, it has been a very strange time, as all of you know, to pitch with our, focus on safety messaging. But we do have plans to launch our Inspire campaign in the next couple of weeks. It's a little tenuous, based on CDC recommendations, but we'll be able to really get back to that more aggressive pitching. Our hands have kind of been tied by the need to have this safety message being forefront because, we're a pseudo government agency. It's an awkward position to be in. That doesn't mean we haven't been trying to seed stories to inspire travel later. It's just a lot simpler when you can say, yeah, come down, report it, let's do this. And we feel like we're getting there. So I can go ahead and tell you that we do have plans to bring back a lot of the, hits you remember, like smaller regional media missions. An in-state mission will be the first thing we do, and that'll be in Raleigh in the fall. Fingers crossed that there's no, fall wave of COVID that somehow turns us all upside down again, but that's our plan. We've even talked, unfortunately for also during conference. So I hope you all are registered for Visit NC 365. We're going to have some PR content, some really meaningful PR content, but I wasn't able to figure out how to do a media roundtable that you remember in a virtual format. It's just a cluster. And so I'm trying to think about how we can do that as part of our Raleigh event to really help you reconnect with some of those key, at least in-state writers and regional writers that we could bring in for that. But we're going to have PR co-op opportunities that you just didn't see in 2020 because of COVID. And all that will be released as part of Visit NC 365. That's April 21st and 22nd. I'll put the link in the chat. And then beyond that, Ashby, you do a great job of this, just keeping us posted as to what's happening, what's new, all those things on that slide Kristen showed about what's news. Suzanne and I and our extended team read all those things, and we have, mostly Suzanne has this like incredible repository. So when, as Kristen said, these short leads are so freaking short. I mean, I've always been used to having turnaround pitches quickly, but it's insane right now. What media leads, the time is like today, tomorrow. So whatever we already know is super important as we are like, okay, where are the things that fit, and go. So keep us informed, make sure we're getting all your updates. Very long answer, but I think we're looking forward to getting back to some sense of normalcy and providing some opportunities for y'all in the near future.
Hey, Margot, this
Hey,
is
Martin.
Martin. How are y'all doing? Good stuff here. I would maybe recommend if there might be maybe quarterly to have just sort of a PR powwow. I think that what's missing is we don't know what
Mhm.
you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think to build synergies and to better support where your priorities are in the coming months and quarters. I know the time horizon's getting shortened, but I do think, there's some great PR minds on this call and across the state that I think that there would be benefit to have, just carve out an hour or so, each quarter or something to just sort of, you could stop off and sort of, lead off with an update of sort of where your priorities are. And I think that'll get us thinking as far as how we could best support that. And we might see some other trends and other things that we're working on as well, like Susan and I that work with multiple destinations and stuff. And certainly all the great people, working on the DMO and county fronts there as well. So I'm just throwing that out there, not to create another meeting, but I do think that that would be helpful.
I agree. And just having an open forum with some just basic agenda would be a great idea. Thank you, Martin.
Hey, can I jump in real quick too?
Yes, please.
Nancy from High Point. So hello, everyone.
Hey.
And Martin, that is a great idea because even if you were to break it up with regions and had smaller groups. But what I wanted to say was you were talking about how to go about doing a roundtable. I can tell you that during COVID, December and January, Amanda Baker on your team did a phenomenal job with getting us a sports mission type virtual trade show, I guess, kind of thing. And she scheduled separate appointments with sports planners. And so we spent like the course of a week and we had blocks of like an hour where we all jumped on this call with the sports association and they gave a pitch as to what they needed. And then we spent time going around the room saying, well, here's High Point, here's what we have. And I feel like that might be, something similar that you could do with travel writers. I don't know. But then of course, I always feel like we're so close to hopefully opening up again too. So maybe the timing is off, but she did a great job coordinating that. And we actually got some leads off of that. So
Great.
yeah.
That's really great to know.
Yeah, I would
Thank you,
agree
Nancy.
I would agree with Nancy, Angela here in Lumberton, that, those were opportunities some of the smaller communities probably never get. To speak with these contacts, leads, put a name with a face directly, because it's so hard to get around to everything. So it was
Right.
use of time, and Amanda did a good job. It was really nice.
Okay, well, I will, I have notes here to pick Amanda's brain on a possible virtual roundtable. I would love to know how to do that and to set up some quarterly check-ins. And I'll just go ahead and put them on calendars well in advance, so we won't schedule over top of them, hopefully. And
she
I
planned
love this.
to invite like our recreation department or
Mhm.
other guests, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was nice too. When you have a
Okay.
small staff, it's hard to get to everything.
Yeah.
I think also, Margot, for those, they could be themed too. Like
Mhm.
even if there's something that, you want to focus on for that particular quarter, we can, and then everybody could have a chance to maybe pull in another person from their destination that could feel like a good spokesperson. Caitlin, I know you put in the chat, I just want to go back to that. You asked about asking for demographics. I guess that was related to influencers. I think that's something you could probably say if you were unsure, like let's say you wanted to reach out to a certain influencer and you followed them and you're like, they have great stuff. This would totally fit for me. I think you can ask that in your pitch and say, I'd really love to work with you, but and this is what I'm thinking. Could you tell me a little bit more about your audience? Because that would help me understand how to plan the best, experience for you, or to how to go about the best way to have the most impactful relationship together. I think framing it in that sense often gives the influencer the feeling that like, this person's done their research, they understand what I'm doing, I can share a little bit more about what my goals are, and it can feel really, complimentary for the work that you would do together. I know that we're coming up to the end here, and I know everybody's probably going to have to run, but is any other questions that everyone wanted to, anyone wanted to bring up?
I've got a question. I just want to pick people's brains. I want to take the opportunity. I'm in Chapel Hill, and in addition to working with media, I'm responsible for our publications. And we didn't do a 2021 guide, but we do plan to do a 2022 visitor guide. Do people think that it's important to still have photographs of people in masks in publications coming out in the fourth quarter of this year? No.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be, if people are wearing masks, they're not going to expect fully to see that in every publication that they read. I don't think that that's something you need to do.
I concur. I know that my colleague Susan and I talk about that a lot. I know that we've had some blog posts from certain people that we've asked for to use on certain destination websites, and we've asked for the photos since it was a little more evergreen in nature to not have the mask, to try to keep a little more consistency. Hopefully this will be behind us very soon.
I just didn't know the time frame from when the CDC is going to say you don't need to wear a mask anymore. Because a lot of times when something's posted currently on Facebook or whatever, it's like you have to, if someone questions, if I used a photo maybe to highlight an event from a previous year and it was an old photo, we have to come back and say, oh no, that was from 2019, because they say, why aren't people wearing masks? So I'm just wondering about the time frame. I'm hoping that we'll be to the point where people won't have to wear masks, but I just wanted to pick y'all's brain, because I'll be starting work on that probably in the summertime. And, I just wanted to just get everybody's ideas, and I appreciate that.
Hey, Patty, I've heard, and this might have changed in the last couple of weeks, but I saw Dr. Fauci on the news, and he anticipates everyone wearing masks through December, like Christmas. So, I mean, that could change, because honestly, even as people are getting vaccinated, even though you're vaccinated, it doesn't mean you can't wear your mask. We all need to cross the line together. So I think they're really pushing for that to be like the last thing that we let go of.
Patty, I would
Thank
say
you.
I've heard that exact same thing, Nancy, and you're like, yikes. But I think, because a lot of the time your pictures, mask or white, and they draw your attention away from whatever, your focus is and that kind of thing, or not all of them, but a lot are. And so I think if you can really make a pronounced, please consult CDC recommendations, and please know, and give them the URL or, the place on your website where your COVID updates are, and say, we would ask that you follow the regulations in our area. You can even say there's always a pinned Facebook post on, the Heart of North Carolina Facebook page with our latest recommendations. And, we would urge you to follow that and keep our staff and everybody else, you too, safe. I think if you can do it in a great way. The other thing, and this was huge for me, and this was actually a tip I got off one of the Visit and See webinars. I had been doing the grim, mask pictures with the COVID updates and everything. And I flipped it on its ear and I said, welcome to blah, 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 blah. And then, we can't wait to see you. Here's the ways we're keeping people safe and the regulations that are in place here, and then I did best hits pictures with that Facebook post, and all the partners started sharing it. It was one of our top reaching organic posts we'd ever had this year. So, but doing that messaging with the positive, we're going to keep everybody safe, go here for the information. And you can put that in print and then really highlight it with some great graphics and things that are positive. And you can totally turn that OMG to an, oh my, yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, we have on our website, obviously at the top, information about COVID, what the current status is. But moving forward, that printed piece that people will carry away from them, I didn't know if people felt it was important for next year to have that. but I appreciate everyone's input.
All right, well, thanks everyone. We are at the end of our time. Appreciate the conversation. I promise we'll keep it going with some more open forums for PR folks across the state. And special thanks to Kristen Mahler from JPR for joining us and leading our discussion today. We look forward to seeing you at Visit NC 365. We've got a great PR session on DE&I. That also includes my neighbor, Susan Dozier. She's right next to me on screen. And some members of the media. We're going to talk about how PR is important when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I hope to see you all there. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.